Tonight on 4029 News, Officer Tyler Franks is on his way home. We're live in Prairie Grove tonight as the city celebrates his homecoming.
And a new report revealing failures at the Fayetteville VA hospital, allowing a former pathologist to misdiagnose veterans while drunk on the job. Tonight, a look at that investigation.
And tonight, a deeper dive into where money from the America Jobs Plan could be spent in our area and why local leaders say it still may not be enough. 4029 News at 5 starts right now.
Live, local, late breaking. This is 4029 News at 5.
On May 4th, Prairie Grove officer Tyler Franks was shot while responding to a domestic dispute. Today, he was released from his rehab facility.
And tonight we have team coverage from Prairie Grove as the community welcomes him home. It's a long-awaited journey. Let's bring in 4029's Emma Claybrook. She's joining us live right now with a look at the moment he left the facility. Hi, Emma.
Officer Tyler Franks left his rehab facility in Fayetteville around 3:30 this afternoon. You can see the parade has just ended here at the Prairie Grove Public Library. Now check out this video. This is video of Officer Franks walking out of the facility this afternoon. Nurses, friends, and other law enforcement officers lined the hallways and cheered him on as he walked out. Officer Franks was released to the rehab facility about a week after he was shot in the legs and torso, responding to a domestic disturbance call in Prairie Grove. The community lined the streets of Prairie Grove just a few minutes ago for a welcome home parade for Officer Franks. Again, we are at the end of the route at the Prairie Grove Public Library, and we will be talking with Officer Franks in just a few minutes. Reporting live in Prairie Grove, Emma Claybrook, 4029 News.
All right, Emma, thank you. Now we have 4029's Kendall Ashman joining us live from that parade. Hey, Kendall, how's it going?
Yeah, Allison, people were out here cheering. Some were pretty emotional. Just moments ago, this street was packed with hundreds of community members, families, and law enforcement here in downtown Prairie Grove welcoming Officer Franks home. Now, it's been 30 days since Officer Franks has been home after he was shot responding to a domestic disturbance call on May 4th. Prairie Grove police tell me the support from the community has helped not only Officer Franks, his family, but the Prairie Grove Police Department. The community has donated over $20,000 through a GoFundMe page and has provided meals and hotel rooms to his family during this past month. Now, we talked to community members about why it was so important to come out today and show their support.
I think it's one of the best things that the city has to honor the police officers, those that in some cases can give their lives for the citizens here of Prairie Grove. And being a longtime resident, being born here, I feel it's just something I can do just to show the appreciation.
And coming up at 6, we spoke with Prairie Grove police about that night on May 4th. We're live in Prairie Grove. I'm Kendall Ashman, 4029 News.
All right, a great homecoming for him to be able to
we're so excited to
leave
see that
with
update.
all of that support from the community and his fellow officers.
And people just been with him the entire journey, rallying behind him. So we're excited to see that long-awaited homecoming. Well, we want to move to weather tonight. We are watching for some more rain, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been pretty gloomy out there, but we still have a chance of rain we're expecting tonight.
Yeah,
Robert?
lady, that is right, ladies.
You're
In fact,
in for
we are tracking just a little bit of rain right now, which is good news. As we look at the radar here, you can see a couple of sprinkles moving their way through central and western sections of Benton County here. Really not a big deal. We have some more steadier rain, though. Most of the River Valley is dry, except in Johnson County, where we do have one thunderstorm just to the northeast of the Strawberry area. All of this activity is marching its way pretty much due east. So very quick downpour, maybe a couple of minutes of small hail, and that should be pretty much it. Temperatures right now are chilly, mostly in the upper 60s and lower 70s. That is about 10 degrees below normal. Still watching for those rain chances as we go through the night in northwest Arkansas as well as the River Valley, but most of us should stay dry. Temperatures tonight mostly mid to upper 50s and lower 60s. Most of the rain, guys, should be finished after the sun sets. Much more on sunshine for tomorrow coming up.
All right, Robert, thank you. Also to this now, a new investigation concludes that a culture of fear and low standards at Fayetteville's VA hospital enabled a pathologist to misdiagnose thousands of veterans while drunk on the job. We've been reporting on Robert Levy since 2017. The report released by the VA's Office of Inspector General shows that hospital leaders, quote, failed to promote a culture of accountability that would have allowed more of Levy's coworkers to voice their concerns about him. The report also shows that staff there feared reporting their concerns would lead to retaliation from bosses. It also says that the consequences of that fear and lack of accountability were, quote, devastating, tragic, and deadly. Levy was sentenced to prison for voluntary manslaughter in January.
And to this now, with the debate heating up in Washington about using billions or trillions of tax dollars for infrastructure spending under President Biden's America's Jobs plan.
We are digging into those claims and some of the funds that could be used right here at home. Let's bring in 4029's Brett Rains. He's joining us live in Fort Smith with why utilities are at the top of the list. Hey, Brett.
Well, the Fort Smith utility director says at times the long list of projects can seem overwhelming. He says any federal funds will help, but that it won't be nearly enough to fix everything.
Any dollar that we get, we're making sure we get the most out of it.
Fort Smith utility crews are replacing miles of steel water lines with PVC pipes like here on South 18th Street.
It's old, it rusts, it develops pinholes, it causes leaks. So a lot of the leaks that we have, not all of them, but a lot of them are associated with the 2-inch galvanized. By upsizing allows us to have better fire flow, better pressure to the citizens, and reduce the potential for future leaks.
Utility Director Lance McAvoy says fixing leaks is a constant challenge, especially with more than 600 miles of water lines throughout the city. Water is coming up through the road on South 26th Street. According to the city's map, there are more than 600 water leaks across Fort Smith, and some have been on the list since 2017.
We didn't get here overnight. This has been going on for decades. We're making a concerted effort to fix the issues that we have, to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow.
And as far as the bill,
the last couple of years it has went up some. I'd say probably about 30-40% increase.
That's mainly due to the ongoing sewer work mandated by the EPA, causing sewer rates to increase 167% from 2015 to 2017. The work required in the federal consent decree was originally estimated to cost $480 million during a 12-year span, but the time frame has increased, and so has the cost.
That number keeps climbing. 700 million or more would not be out of the ballpark of what we're seeing.
Another major project that's being done in phases, a $147 million second water main from Lake Fort Smith near Mountainburg to the city, which in turn supplies water to much of the river valley.
This will allow us to have additional water to supply industry, citizens, and basically sets us up for growth for decades to come.
And the city has received more than $2 million in COVID-19 American Relief Funds so far. The deputy city administrator says they're checking to see if that money can be used for the water and sewer projects. Live in Fort Smith, Brett Rains, 4029 News.
And tomorrow, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg will visit the Interstate 40 bridge connecting Tennessee and Arkansas. It's been indefinitely closed after a crack was found in one of its steel beams. To this now, today Walmart held its annual shareholders meeting virtually for the second year. Walmart's U.S. business was very strong, they say, with sales up by 6%. More than half of that was attributed to e-commerce sales. This is video of past Walmart shareholders meetings. Now, on the vaccination front, CEO Doug McMillon says the company will make the vaccine easy and available for workers, but will not require associates to get the shot.
So as it relates to the company, our intention is to continue to make it as easy as possible to get the vaccine and to explain the benefits of that. We've taken a number of steps, as I mentioned earlier, including a financial incentive to encourage people to do so. And we would like to see more people get vaccinated. So we'll continue encouraging, but don't anticipate doing more than that.
Total revenue for Walmart was $138 billion, an increase of $3.7 billion from 1 year ago. Now, coming up at 6, we'll hear how Walmart plans to address wages and racial inequality in the workplace. Walmart also letting up on its COVID restrictions. The retailer will follow the new relaxed CDC mask guidance for customers and employees. And Walmart stores no longer have limits on capacity. They're also expanding their hours after they reduced it during the pandemic. As of June 5th, most stores will be open 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. In July, most pharmacies and vision centers will return to pre-pandemic hours.
And we want to move to our COVID-19 coverage now. New daily inactive cases are back up in the natural state. 242 new cases were reported today. That is 173 more than yesterday. Active cases also increased by 62. Sadly, one more person has died from COVID complications, but hospitalizations did decrease by 11. In the last 24 hours, here's a look at the vaccine front here. More than 3,400 people became fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Now, when you get your vaccine, you also get a vaccine card, of course, and you're told to keep that in a safe place.
Yeah, we have 4029's Cole Zimmerman reporting on just this and why you might need to hold on to those cards and what to do if you accidentally lose it.
According to the Arkansas Department of Health, there are more than 2 million Arkansans who have at least one dose of the vaccine, which means there are also over 2 million of these around. Here's why medical experts suggest keeping them safe.
There's a good chance you haven't had to show proof of COVID vaccination anywhere yet, but Dr. Marty Sharkey says that could change.
I am aware of a few businesses that have asked their employees to show evidence of vaccine in order to come back into the office without a mask on. I expect that there will be more as people return to the office, and that is something that employers can indeed ask for.
Some colleges across the U.S. are also requiring proof of COVID vaccination before returning to classrooms. However, the University of Arkansas, Fayetteville, and Fort Smith are not. Now, throughout our busy lives, things can get misplaced, but if you lose your vaccine card, there's no need to panic. Your vaccination record should also be in an online database.
Any healthcare provider in the state should be able to access that and print off an official document with the state seal of Arkansas on it that shows that you received that vaccine on that date.
But the card isn't necessarily one that fits easily into your wallet, for example. So Dr. Sharkey has a couple of suggestions so you can keep it in a safe location.
What I recommend is taking a picture of it so you have it on your phone. And then the other thing I recommend doing is making a copy of it and shrink it down to wallet size and laminate it.
Another reason Dr. Sharkey suggests holding on to these is if we need some sort of a COVID-19 vaccine booster shot. And since we don't know the exact future of travel or socializing in large groups, it's probably best just to go ahead and keep this safe. Cole Zimmerman, 4029 News.
All right, good information there. Okay, President Biden is declaring June a National Month of Action. This is part of an effort to reach his goal of having 70% of the adult population with at least one vaccine dose by July 4th. Part of that initiative includes teaming up with 4 of our nation's largest daycare centers to offer free child care while you get the vaccine or recover from side effects. And the administration is also working with small businesses and large companies to increase access to shots.
We're announcing a month-long effort to pull all the stops to free ourselves from this virus.
Vaccines will happen at barbershops, baseball games, and NASCAR races. Pharmacies will be open 24 hours on Fridays.
Vice President Kamala Harris will lead a nationwide tour aimed at getting more people vaccinated. Officials say her travel will focus on states in the South and in the Midwest.
Well, there are 42 cases of COVID-19 in Oklahoma tonight. That is the lowest single-day total the state has seen in months. The CDC reported 2 more provisional deaths, sadly, and nearly 3 million total COVID-19 doses of the vaccine have actually been administered in Oklahoma. That is an increase of about more than 112,000 in a little more than 2 weeks. Experts say that's an encouraging sign.
And tonight, we want to take a closer look at both sets of Diamond Hogs in our Hog Wild Special Diamond Edition. Our sports crew Mitch Roberts and Jordan Black will break down the squad's postseason runs. That starts at 6:30, right after 4029 News at 6, and you don't want to miss it.
No, you don't. Still to come tonight, we could soon see an increase in certain meat product prices.
We'll tell you what's causing that potential spike and what's being done to hopefully stop this from happening.
And a bear gets an unexpected surprise as it tries to go in this backyard. You don't want to miss this footage either. Stay with us.
It's too soon, in a sense, to take our foot off the brakes.
Tonight, why the state of health official says we must remain cautious, even if we're making progress. Plus, Governor Asa Hutchinson standing firm on his decision to veto the SAFE Act, why he says it's too much. 4029 News starts right now.
Live, local, late breaking. This is 4029 News at 5:30.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jamie Weiss. We want to start off with a look at Arkansas's latest COVID update. Tonight, no new deaths or hospitalizations have been reported. The state health department did report 100 new cases, and active cases have dropped by 28. But for the third day in a row, Arkansas has had 0 new COVID-19 deaths reported. I want to go ahead and bring in 4029's Emma Claybrook joining us live now with why the Arkansas Department of Health says this is promising news.
Jamie, it has been months since we have seen a string of consecutive days of no new COVID-19 deaths reported. I spoke with Dr. Jennifer Dillahay with the Arkansas Department of Health today. She says we could be seeing less deaths because we're seeing less COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations. She also says this could be because of more Arkansans getting vaccinated for COVID-19, especially those who are most at risk of dying from the virus. Although this is hopeful news, Dr. Dillahay says we could see more deaths added to the count when we catch up with a possible lag in reporting.
We need to keep in mind, though, that the deaths may be delayed in reporting to us. So sometimes they may take a month or more before we get a death certificate that we can verify and check related to our COVID registry. But usually we get them fairly quickly, and so we just didn't have any old deaths to report or any new ones the last couple of days, and that should give us some hope for the future.
Dr. Dillahay says it's important to remember that we should not let up on our COVID-19 precautions like wearing masks or staying out of large groups, even if you are fully vaccinated. Reporting live in Bentonville, Emma Claybrook, 4029 News.
We will have much more COVID coverage for you in just a bit, but for now we want to turn to this. Governor Asa Hutchinson continues to defend his decision to veto a bill that bans gender-affirming treatments for transgender youth. He spoke with CNN this morning. Take a listen.
Trans youth does not care, and so when that third bill came to me, I said that's too much, and this interferes with patient care. It interferes with parental decisions on an area that the science is continuing to learn more about. These are tough areas, and what we have to do is we can debate them on conservative principles, but let's show compassion and tolerance and understanding as we do that, and that's the simple message.
Well, the governor says this is not something that government needs to be involved in. We are wrapping up the weekend with some nice weather. This is video we took from Lake Atalanta in Rogers. Definitely a bit warmer out today compared to yesterday, but sadly, we know the weather is going to change. I want to bring in 4029 meteorologist Robert Sir with the Get Ready Weather forecast. And Robert, we're going from a beautiful picture-perfect day to quite the opposite.
We're going from this to this.
Exactly.
That's essentially what we're going to there, folks, unfortunately. But let's enjoy today while we can. Live look outside to Fort Smith. Not a cloud in the sky. It's actually in the 80s across the River Valley. We'll take you looking to the west toward Oklahoma here at the Cherokee Casino in West Island Springs. Again, crystal clear skies out there. Same thing for Springdale. Flags blowing just a little bit. We got some southwesterly winds ushering in today's warmer temperatures. But again, unfortunately, it's not going to last. Here's a look at your neighborhood here. Upper 70s, Northwest Arkansas, lower 80s for the River Valley. A much nicer day than yesterday, but it's this cold front that we're watching. It's going to slide in our direction, touch off a couple of showers, maybe a weak thunderstorm tomorrow, and then cooler air behind it. Not bad tonight, though, with clear skies and light winds out there. Temperatures mid to upper 40s out there tomorrow. Not a bad day. We'll see increasing clouds throughout the day and then the chance for that rain as we get toward the evening hours. But after Monday, that's when you'll see in the extended forecast here, Jamie, in a few minutes, those temperatures and rain really ramp up.
All right, good to know. Thanks, Robert. We do want to shift back now to our COVID-19 coverage. Local churches in Northwest Arkansas and Walmart hosting a vaccine clinic this afternoon. We spoke with the first person in line to get a dose. She says initially she didn't even plan to get vaccinated.
Would hate to get ready to go out of town to see someone that is deathly ill and not be able to get on the airplane. That's what my thinking was.
Well, neighbors were able to get a shot in the St. James Baptist Church parking lot in Fayetteville. Right now, we know that more than 540,000 Arkansans are considered fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Next week, the Walmart pharmacy in Fort Smith will be hosting 2 different vaccine clinics. Both will be for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The first is on April 14th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., while the second is on April 17th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Appointments are necessary, so you can call the number you see listed here on your screen to make one. In Oklahoma, the State Department of Health there will be updating the latest COVID numbers tomorrow. But for right now, the state is reporting more than 443,000 total cases. We know that at least 8,000 provisional deaths have been reported. An Oklahoma mobile van travels across the Sooner State to get COVID shots to Native Americans who are at risk. It's called the Medicine Runner. The mobile unit has a team of 3 nurses as well as refrigeration for doses. And officials say this is about meeting people where they are and making sure they have access.
I'm not aware of anyone else taking, vaccine into the communities via a mobile unit. So we're really excited to be able to expand this service into our rural communities. And we hope to increase vaccination rates because of it.
The CDC reports more than 2.2 million doses have been administered in Oklahoma. Tonight, growing concerns over the coronavirus and a possible new wave. ABC's Irene Shaw has the latest.
An alarming and steady uptick in the number of confirmed coronavirus cases here in the U.S. has healthcare officials fearing a 4th wave. An average of 64,000 plus Americans testing positive daily, an increase of more than 21% in just the past 3 weeks. Hospitalizations climbing too, up 12% since the beginning of the month.
It's certainly something we're concerned about. I think this is evidence of just how opportunistic and tenacious the virus is, and further evidence that although there is a light at the end of the tunnel, we are not out of the tunnel yet.
Among those states hardest hit, New Jersey, New York, Minnesota, and Michigan. Officials there asking people to stop gathering indoors.
We all need to go above and beyond the rules we already have in place. We all have to step up our game.
Some hospitals now forced to revert to pre-pandemic restrictions, banning visitors, halting non-emergency procedures, and implementing surge plans, and new worries over vaccine distributions.
We've got to keep pushing ahead with vaccinations until we are fully done.
The U.S. setting a new single-day record on Saturday. The White House saying more than 4.5 million shots were administered in just 24 hours. 45% of adults here have now received at least 1 dose, 27% fully vaccinated. But hindering that fight, a sharp decline in the supply of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, expected to drop 85% this week, slowing efforts at vaccine sites from California to Virginia. J.K. Hanley, a teacher in Jackson, Michigan, was on a ventilator and in a coma a year ago fighting for his life. Today, he's fully vaccinated, but remembers those dark days well.
I remember I didn't want to go to sleep because I was afraid I wouldn't wake up if I did.
Zoreen Shah, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Make sure you download the 4029 News app for all the latest information about the pandemic. It's free to find in the Google Play and Apple App Stores. If you grew up listening to hit songs like Anne Murray's You Needed Me or Oh Sherry by Steve Perry, then you know the work of this Arkansas native, Randy Goodrum. The Fayetteville songwriter has not slowed down at the age of 73. Goodrum just released a solo album at the end of 2020 and debuted a new lyric video with the help of a fellow Arkansan this weekend.
When times are not good, that's a really good time for art. It's like, because there's so much to write about. I mean, there's so much cathartic messaging that you can do for people where they say, wow, that song really helped me,
Well, be sure to join us tonight on 4029 News at 9 and 10 as we hear how being an Arkansan has shaped Goodrum's songwriting journey and how he involved a fellow Arkansan in his latest project. Also coming up tonight on 4029 News, our Project Community History and Hope special. Older Americans of color sharing their experiences during the Civil Rights Movement, including one of the first black students to integrate at Fayetteville High School.
We couldn't go to Springdale and be there up there after dark. We couldn't go to Bentonville. I mean, I think all those little towns were still kind of, they weren't ready for us. But now we can go wherever we want. You couldn't be there after sundown.
Well, you can learn much more about Denton's hope for the future and many others tonight right here on 4029 at 6 o'clock after this newscast ends. It is National Volunteer Month, and nonprofits across the nation have seen a decline in the people donating their time. Tonight, how the pandemic has affected in-person volunteerism and what you can do to help. Plus, Congress gets back to work, how it plans to tackle the president's infrastructure plan right after the break.
We don't want to hear words. The community wants to see action.
Cyclists taking a stand against Arkansas legislation they believe negatively impacts the trans community.
All Americans will be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine this month. I'm Aixa Diaz in Washington with frequently asked questions and answers about the shot.
Plus, local students get a deeper look at what it takes to attend a U.S. military academy. 4029 News starts right now.
Live, local, late breaking. This is 4029 News at 6.
Thanks for joining us on this Saturday night, and what a gloomy day it's been for so many of us. Even though the flowers are blooming, there were still a lot of people out in this gloomy weather. This is a video of downtown Fayetteville earlier today. You definitely saw a lot of people having to wear their jackets today, but here's the good news. The weekend should wrap up with some nice weather. I want to bring in 4029 meteorologist Robert Sir. And Robert, what can we expect for our Sunday?
A much nicer day. So many people today, Jamie, blaming the weather again for their for today's the problems with the temperatures and everything. I wanted to start real quick with the pollen count because it has been so warm. Pollen's really exploding. Tree pollen is high right now. Thankfully, weed and mold spores, they're still relatively low, but grass pollen is starting to creep up there as well. So if you suffer from seasonal allergies, that's why, because it's that time of the year. There's that thick deck of overcast over Rogers. It's taken a while to really clear out, but if you move into the River Valley, plenty of sunshine out there, and it's reflective in some of our temperatures. Lower 50s, but mid 60s for the River Valley right now. And these temperatures are all colder than where we were at this point yesterday. Pretty chilly night out there. Tonight, you'll need to probably throw an extra blanket on the bed. But by tomorrow, look how quickly we rebound, mid to upper 70s. But Jamie, this is going to be the nicest day for the foreseeable future. I'll tell you why coming up.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Robert. Arkansas has passed 2 pieces of legislation that some are calling anti-trans. One law bans transgender women from competing in sports. The other denies gender-affirming health care to minors. Well, Governor Asa Hutchinson vetoed that bill, but the Senate overrode his veto earlier this week. Meanwhile, those laws have affected a professional biking event that's happening in Fayetteville this weekend. 4029's Cole Zimmerman is joining us live to explain.
Well, professional and amateur cyclists from across the world are here in Fayetteville to compete in the U.S. Cup, but some athletes were a little bit on the fence and were debating whether or not to race this weekend because of recent legislation that was passed. It's one of the first major events here in Arkansas since the pandemic began.
It means a lot to be back around people safely, and to be able to showcase our area and our city that we love so, we love Fayetteville.
But after recent bills that have been signed into law that some people are calling anti-trans, cyclists across the country are taking notice. One professional cyclist decided not to race this weekend.
I have friends in the mountain bike race world who are transgender, and my feeling was that if they were uncomfortable going to Arkansas and they didn't feel like welcomed there with open arms, I did not want to go either.
We agree and understand where people are coming from that are boycotting the event, and that's absolutely their right to do that. And it's unfortunate that legislation like that is passed, because as the tourism agency who's supposed to welcome everyone, it hinders what we do sometimes.
Molly Cameron is a transgender woman and activist in the cycling community. She supports the race in Fayetteville, but says she wants to see more being done by the cycling community to stand up for the trans community.
The reason I feel good about this is the race and event promoter actively engaged with a transgender person and then took my advice. We don't want to hear words. The community wants to see action. I mean, even if the action's minimal right now, anything like action, less words, more action.
Now, the amateurs competed today and the professionals will race tomorrow if you would like to come out and watch. And if you can't make it this weekend, the action will continue next weekend here at Centennial Park. Live in Fayetteville, Cole Zimmerman, 4029 News.
Well, as we mentioned, just this week, the Arkansas legislature overrode the governor's veto on the SAFE Act. The measure bans gender-affirming treatments for transgender youth, and sponsors of the bill say this is about protecting children.
They're minors and they're children, and they need to be protected from two things, both surgical and chemical sex change procedures.
The SAFE Act will become law 90 days after the legislative session ends. And advocates are calling on the NCAA to act in response to laws against transgender athletes. The Associated Press reports at least 28 states have introduced legislation to ban or limit transgender athletes from competing on teams or in sports that align with their gender identity. Laws banning transgender women and girls from participating in organized sports have been signed in Idaho, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Arkansas.
Legislative leaders are perpetuating stigma that fuels an epidemic of violence against our community.
Simply put, trans inclusion makes our sports, our teams, and our communities stronger.
The NCAA has a transgender inclusion policy, which has been in place since 2011. It requires states that host championships to provide an environment that is, quote, safe, healthy, and free of discrimination. Turning now to your COVID impact coverage. Here's a look at the latest numbers for Arkansas. The Department of Health releasing new coronavirus numbers today. The officials have reported no new deaths in the last 24 hours. We do know, though, that 5,600 Arkansans have died from the virus in total. Hospitalizations did go up by 3, so 163 patients now remain in a COVID unit. The active cases also increased by 29. More than 538,000 Arkansans are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. We know that some local churches have partnered up to help get neighbors vaccinated. St. James Missionary Baptist Church, Fellowship of Champions Church, and Walmart will all host a vaccine clinic tomorrow. It starts at noon in the St. James parking lot. This is off of West North Street. Organizers say they're hoping to get more Black Arkansans vaccinated and answer questions about the vaccine. Next week, the Walmart pharmacy in Fort Smith will also be hosting 2 vaccine clinics. Both of these will be for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The first is on April 14th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. The second is on April 17th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Appointments are necessary. You can call the number you see listed here on your screen to make an appointment. In less than 2 weeks, all adults across the country will be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. And as more of you prepare for the shot, you're probably wondering what to expect. Aixa Diaz is in our Washington bureau with more.
One question doctors hear a lot: which vaccine should I get? Their answer: the first one that's available to you. They also have some advice on what to expect during and after the shot.
If you're one of the millions of Americans waiting to get the COVID-19 vaccine, you might be wondering, in which arm should I get the shot?
It's very likely that after the shot, you're going to have a sore arm. So many individuals choose to have the injection in their non-dominant arm so that, it does not interfere with their day-to-day activity.
Can I take over-the-counter pain relievers if I have side effects?
Early on, there were some questions of if these kind of medications would prevent the vaccine from being effective, but the data has not supported that. So what I tell my patients is if you are having fevers, if you are having chills, body aches, then take acetaminophen or Tylenol or ibuprofen.
What if I don't have any symptoms?
If you got the vaccine and you didn't feel any side effects, I would not be worried. We know that if you get that vaccine, whether or not you have effects, it is working.
Anything I should avoid doing immediately after getting vaccinated?
Once you have your dose, you're going to be monitored. Usually they'll have you sit down for about 15 minutes after the vaccine to make sure you're not having any allergic reactions. But if you haven't had any allergic reactions and you feel fine, you can really go about your daily activity.
When will I have full immunity?
2 weeks after that final dose is when you have full protection. That doesn't mean you have no protection after the first dose or no protection at the time of the dose. But to get that full effect, it's 2 weeks after the final dose.
The COVID-19 vaccine is free for everyone. You may have to show your insurance card if you have one, but you will not have to pay anything when you get the shot. In Washington, I'm Mike Sedanis.
Well, the nation has moved closer to the president's goal of 200 million doses in his first 100 days. The CDC reports more than 178 million doses have been administered so far. In Oklahoma, state health officials reporting 416 new cases and 10 more provisional deaths. These numbers, of course, will not be updated again until Monday. But make sure you download the free 4029 News app for all the latest information about COVID-19. You can find it to download in the Google Play and Apple app stores. Some high school students learned about the U.S. military academies today. They walked through all the processes from getting admitted to being appointed. We spoke with the veteran and his daughter about how helpful these type of events are.
Getting your education and serving your country, that's not a bad combination. And if you don't know exactly what you want to do, the educational opportunities, the athletic opportunities, the experiences are, in my opinion, they're unmatched at the different military academies. But I obviously have a preference for Army over the rest of them.
Well, Congressman Steve Womack hosted 2 U.S. Service Day events today. One was held in Van Buren, the other in Rogers. Social media company Facebook says they won't notify you if your personal data has been compromised. Coming up, where you can go if you believe your info may have been released. Plus, Bentonville's farmers market is open for the season. What changes you can expect to see while grabbing some fresh produce.
Live, local, late breaking. This is 4029 News at 6.
Tonight, we are remembering the 5 victims that lost their lives in a car crash on Friday morning. The accident happened in LaFleur County on State Highway 112 near Cameron, Oklahoma. 4029's Kendall Ashman continues with our coverage tonight.
Shockwaves are running through both Greenwood and Fort Smith tonight. We spoke with family members and the Greenwood School District who shared memories of both families tonight.
I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I felt numb.
Mary Ann Druschel lost her mother Jill, father Charles, and sister Renata yesterday.
This is her at school. She went to Immaculate Conception School.
And Mary Ann's dad, Charles, served in the Army for 22 years. Her mom served for 11. They were married for 29.
They went and they got married in the pastor's living room. They knocked on his door in the middle of the night and got married in the pastor's living room.
Mary Ann says Charles, Jills, and Renata were on their way home from visiting her brother in Alaska. According to the Oklahoma Highway Patrol report, Charles was driving northbound on the 2-lane road when he crossed the center line, crashing head-on into his Chevy Traverse. Inside was 15-year-old Landry driving his father, Aaron Gamble. No one survived.
If Greenwood didn't have the Bulldogs for the mascot, it could be the Gambles. They personified everything that our community stands for.
Aaron Gamble was recently selected as the principal for Greenwood High School. Ray says it was his dream job. His son Landry just finished freshman year.
As I've talked to his friends and talked to people in our district, it's so obvious the legacy that he and Landry are leaving, and it's one of kindness and of love and of gentleness and servanthood.
As for Fort Smith and Greenwood, families, friends, and co-workers say they will continue the legacy of Charles, Jill, Renata, and Landry and Aaron.
The family needs prayer. This community needs prayer, and our school needs prayer just in the days to come. The Lord will get us through this, but it's going to be difficult.
She knows that I have doubts, but she can see God's face. And I can almost guarantee that she's singing me that song because I can't get it out of my head.
Funeral arrangements are still being made for both families, and as of now, everyone's asking for continued support and prayers for both communities and everyone who knew the victims. In Greenwood, I'm Kendall Ashman, 4029 News.
Such a tragic story there. We do want to get a check of the forecast now. It's been another hot day, but there is some relief on the way. We want to check in with 4029 meteorologist Robert Sir. So tell me, Robert, when can we expect those cooler temperatures?
Monday.
Awesome.
Yeah. I cannot wait. It has been so awful the past, what seems like month. We've had 1 or 2 days where it's been okay.
You're not used to this Arkansas heat.
No, I just don't like heat in general, period. End of story. That's just me, though. I'd much rather have it like 45 degrees. That's nice and comfortable, but you get what you got to live with it sometimes. And there's our temperatures right now. Still a scorcher. Upper 80s, Northwest Arkansas, lower 90s for the River Valley. And it's still muggy out there, so we do have dew points that are around the century mark. You can see there Boonville checking in with a heat index of 100. Lower 90s for Northwest Arkansas. Now, when you factor everything in, especially the sun angle, you get the heat danger index. And you can see it's not too bad across Northwest Arkansas, but you get probably south of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel. Then you start to get into that moderate range. And then the further south you go, very high risk for sun poisoning, heat stroke, those sorts of things out there. And you can see a large portion of the south is dealing with that as well. Tonight, another muggy night with just a couple of clouds around, another bad sleeping weather night out there. If you do not have air conditioner, lows tonight upper 60s and lower 70s. An absolutely brutal day tomorrow, probably the hottest day. We keep saying this. We're going to get to close to 100 degrees in the River Valley tomorrow, but this is it. After this, we've got a much more comfortable weather on the way. I'll tell you when and how long it'll last, Jamie, coming up.
All right, good to know. Thanks, Robert. Well, today marks Juneteenth, more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln's historic Emancipation Proclamation. Union Army Major General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, and on June 19, 1865, shared the news that all enslaved black people were free. The grandmother of Juneteenth has campaigned for this holiday for years.
To have it actually happen was, can I use the phrase the children use? It was off the chain.
Well, Juneteenth is now the first federal holiday to be established since Martin Luther King Jr. Day back in 1983. Earlier today in Texas, the grandmother of Juneteenth that you just heard from, Opal Lee, participated in this march. The annual 2.5-mile walk in Fort Worth by Opal and some others was all part of her effort to see the momentous day recognized as a federal holiday. Here at home, Crystal Bridges hosting the Sounds of Freedom concert in honor of Juneteenth. This is a part of the Forest concert series. It'll feature Dee Dee Jones and Spud Howard. They're going to be singing what's called protest music. These are covers of well-known songs from the civil rights movement of the 60s.
Stories, or people may not know about stories like Mahalia Jackson, singing and being a part of Martin Luther King. She was one of his best friends. Singers like Belafonte, they helped, and Stevie Wonder even. They helped, fund some of these activists, like Martin Luther King.
Well, music starts at 7 o'clock tonight and ends around 9:30. Tickets are $12 at Crystal Bridges. Earlier today, people in Fort Smith gathered at a Riverfront Park for a Juneteenth celebration. Mayor George McGill hosted the event. Some people say that this year's celebrations mean so much more.
This is 165 years where this has not been noticed as a federal holiday, and we're just thankful that it is, and we're here to celebrate.
Well, they got to enjoy some games, live music, and speakers, all to bring the community together. You can find a full list of Juneteenth events happening in our area on our website. That's 4029tv.com. Happening tomorrow in downtown Fort Smith, the Rally for Equality. Organizers say this is a chance for the River Valley's LGBTQ community and allies to be out and proud. This is happening tomorrow from 1 o'clock to 3 p.m. at the post office on Garrison Avenue. The River Valley Equality Center and the Committee for Social Advancement Fort Smith will be co-sponsoring this event. I want to get now to your latest COVID-19 coverage. Arkansas seeing a slight increase in their numbers, but we have met the governor's August 2nd goal of half of all eligible Arkansans to get at least one shot of the vaccine. So let's take a look at today's numbers. The state reporting nearly 251 new cases. Total cases since the start of the pandemic are now at more than 345,000. Active cases are above 2,400 tonight. They only increased by 9. But here's the good news. No new deaths have been reported in the last 24 hours. And 9 more people were checked into a COVID hospital unit. On the vaccine front, more than 964,000 people are considered fully vaccinated. Yesterday in Oklahoma, 181 new COVID-19 cases were reported as the CDC reported 3 new deaths. 44% of the state's eligible population is considered fully vaccinated. We have reached a major vaccination milestone here in the U.S. as 300 million doses have been administered in the first 150 days of the Biden administration. We know that 65% has received at least one dose. But some health officials are worrying that the nation's unlikely to reach the president's goal of 70% vaccinated by July 4th. Some parts of the country are now seeing a rise in COVID cases, and at least 5 states have had an increase of nearly 40% or more in the past 2 weeks. The rise in cases attributed in part to the lack of vaccinations.
I am still putting patients on life support machines because they're non-vaccinated and becoming very ill.
The CDC will hold a meeting next week to look into more than 300 confirmed cases of a rare heart inflammation. This has been experienced by young people who were vaccinated with the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines, and nearly 150 million people are now fully vaccinated across the U.S. Gun violence remains a major topic of debate in the United States Senate as lawmakers try and determine what, if any, steps to take on gun laws. Matt Pritchard is in our Washington bureau with a closer look.
There are deep divides about what to do about gun violence and whether to change some gun laws. But the conversation is being spurred by a rise in mass shootings in recent months. A busy summer agenda lies ahead.
The list of things to do in the Congress, particularly in the Senate, is long and growing.
How to curb gun violence is one of the major priorities for Democrats. From Atlanta to Austin to Boulder, mass shootings have spiked in 2021, including 10 mass shootings in 7 different states over a 3-day period in recent weeks. Now, those totals are adding urgency to the debate over gun laws.
The recent uptick in violence is just the latest evidence point that action is necessary.
2 bills have passed the House, H.R. 8, which adds new background check requirements for private parties, and H.R. 1446, which would force gun dealers to wait a minimum of 10 days for a completed background check before finalizing a sale.
Putting in safeguards to make sure that people convicted of felonies or domestic violence don't obtain firearms is a small price to pay.
But some gun advocates say when it comes to background checks,
the system is flawed. So this notion of expanding it is going to make Americans safer is a fiction.
Their solution, easing, not tightening restrictions.
Get rid of off-limits places. Get rid of gun-free zones. Let people arm themselves and fight back.
And back on Capitol Hill, experts say reaching compromise on gun reform remains difficult.
As of right now, there's not at least 60 votes to pass something as controversial and high salience as gun control.
And in terms of how Americans view this issue, current polling shows that 84% of voters believe every person trying to buy a gun should have to go through a background check. In Washington, I'm Matt Pritchard.
Well, Congress has a tight window to work through these different issues with a 2-week break for the 4th of July and their summer recess coming up in August. We want to get to this story now. Bentonville's Bike Fest is underway all weekend long. Organizers say that visitors will see some things you might have never seen done before on a bike. This is all happening near the 8th Street Market until tomorrow evening. And here's the good news. It is free for visitors. And it's not just the adults getting in on all of the cycling fun this weekend. Some toddlers, and yes, you heard that right, the toddlers all got the chance to ride around in the Strider Cup race today, drawing in families from all across the globe. The Strider is a special type of bike designed to help the youngest cyclists learn how to ride.
You know, Strider started 15 years ago when I was trying to teach my son, who was 2, how to ride a bike. And after trying a lot of the training wheel and tricycle methods, ended up with a garage project and came up with the Strider, and it worked exceedingly well for him. And lots of friends wanted bikes, and next thing you know, I'm in the bike business.
Well, some of today's participants came all the way from Japan and the United Kingdom just to race. There were several different age groups and categories starting at just 2 years old, and I can't stop watching this video because it's so adorable. What an incredible way to learn how to ride a bike. Still to come tonight, local businesses partnering up for a good cause.
Support that in some way. That's our community, right?
We'll tell you what they are doing to support the Northwest Arkansas Children's Shelter.
And we are still dealing with the heat. We got another blisteringly hot day ahead of us for Sunday, but big time relief is on the way. I'll tell you coming up in my full forecast.